With that said, let's go and transition Jordan into the next topic that we're going to talk about today, and that is the Junior Day. So we talked about it a lot last week about the Junior Day that was upcoming this Saturday. We're going to have a big recruiting weekend, tons of guys in, more guys than you can even rattle off on a list. There were so many people. I think there was like 6 busloads outside of Death Valley of just recruits and their families and whoever else was coming with them. So a lot of people in town this weekend, a lot of big names. Gideon Davison spent all week in Clemson, just kind of helping to recruit his recruiting class. So shout out to Gideon Davison for being just the absolute man of this 2025 class. He is the without a doubt leader of this class. He's always out there petitioning for Clemson and trying to get dudes to commit and trying to convince people and all that kind of stuff. And then we get a guy like David Sanders on campus twice this week. We get Mason Short on campus and Josh Petit on campus. We got all these people on campus coming multiple times. Looks like we're making some pretty serious headway with David Sanders. Anytime you can get a guy like that on campus, as many times as he's been on campus lately, and then he comes back, multiple times within the same week, spells good things for the Tigers. So give us a quick, recap on our Junior Day. How did we do? What are the big storylines coming out of it? What are the big names that the Clemson Tiger fans should be reading about, talking about, and looking forward to?
Yeah, it was a massive, massive weekend. Not just for 2025, but 2026. The amount of 26 kids that were in attendance was pretty large. So, they not only are they trying to, kind of push things forward with the guys in this 25 cycle, but they're kind of, sowing the seeds for the guys that are going to be hard after in the 26 class as well. So, it was a really, really great weekend. A lot of great returns. I didn't expect any sort of commitments to come out of this weekend, but from everything that has been reported, it was a great, great weekend for everybody that was involved. I'd say the biggest guy, at least on that Saturday, was definitely Bryce Davis out of Grimsley. Felt like that was Clemson has kind of zeroed in on him as kind of the I don't know how to say it, maybe the bow on this defensive line class. Just really, really high on this kid, and they spent a lot of time with him. He hung out with Chris Rumpf and Coach Eason. And so the relationships have been really, really strong there. So we'll kind of see how it plays out. I think he still is going to want to take his official visits and kind of make sure that he's got his he's given every school a fair shot. But I think it's a recruitment that Clemson is going to be right down there at the end for, and this is going to be a familiar theme, but I think Georgia is definitely the biggest threat when it comes to him. Clemson, as far as Grimsley High School is concerned, I feel like Clemson is trying to kind of reestablish that pipeline. Some of the old relationships have kind of changed in the past couple of years. And, if you guys remember Travis Shaw, obviously that was his high school, and we know how that recruitment went. So I think this would be a massive win for Clemson in the state of North Carolina and kind of reestablishing that pipeline, because that school does put out a lot of talent. And so we'll see how it goes. Like I said, think it's a Clemson-Georgia battle right now, and it'll come down to the official visits. And another guy in Isaiah Gibson out of Warner Robins. He's a guy that I think is kind of I think you're also battling Georgia, so that's going to be tough. We'll kind of see how he plays out. I think his recruitment is kind of still taking shape, and as far as the pecking order of where things stand, I think Clemson and Georgia are right there. neck and neck. So we'll kind of see how he goes. Also, defensive tackle Christian Garrett out of Bogart, Prince Avenue. And Clemson has kind of zeroed in on him as that next defensive tackle in the class. We'll see how that recruitment plays out. I didn't want to go through all of everybody individually, but so those are some of the big names. Also shout out to Tay Harris, who I mentioned last week. Continues to draw rave reviews. He apparently, I think he brought his pastor to the visit. So that's pretty significant. Obviously, knowing how Clemson operates and the Christian oriented culture. I think that's really telling. I would say. I feel like that's a very big gesture and a very important and notable thing. But we'll see kind of how it plays out down the road. But Tay Harris, I talked about him last week. He ran a 4.3 or a clock at like a 4.3940 at a camp in Florida, and his recruitment is starting to turn heads, and he's starting to collect more offers. But he seems really, really enthusiastic about Clemson, and Clemson is really enthusiastic about him. So we'll kind of see if Clemson can kind of stay the course and win that commitment. But yeah, those are some of the guys I wanted to mention. Also, safety Anquan Fegans, good returns out of there. So just a really big weekend, and on that Saturday, a really nice group on that Saturday, and then you mentioned David Sanders coming in on that Sunday, and then turning around and making a return trip yesterday with Josh Petty, who we've talked about, that the other big tackle prospect that Clemson is after, as well as Mason Short. And Gideon Davidson was along for the ride. We talked about how he's been hard at work recruiting for Clemson and spending a lot of time with these guys. So you have to feel good, especially on the offensive line, about where things stand. And I think Clemson is in really good position for David Sanders, Mason Short, and Josh Petty. We'll see how Petty is going to be interesting because he reportedly wants to play where his sister ends up going, and Clemson is one of those schools she's considering. But Clemson has done a really great job with him as well. So you have to feel really good about where things stand on the offensive line board, and what the job that Matt Luke has done. Because I think if everything goes right, recruiting is especially nowadays, it's a really hard thing to track, and especially with how NIL and all of that has factored in. But you have to feel really good about Clemson, when the dust settles, having a really, really strong offensive line haul. So feel really good about some that position in particular, and also wide receiver position. I'm really interested to see how that continues to play out. They had 3-star wide receiver Tyler Williams, a guy that's been sort of a fast riser. I think Clemson is continuing to monitor him. Obviously, Cortez Mills is a high 4-star wide receiver. Cortez Mills is a guy that they've been really, they've kind of been battling Miami for a while there. We'll kind of see how that continues to play out. But yeah, great weekend and great, following few days as far as visitors are concerned. So we'll see how, that continues to play out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And a star-studded junior weekend. You went through the names and really highlighted the guys that Clemson fans need to be taking notice of and tracking. And the only guy that might be out recruiting the Clemson coaches right now is Gideon Davison. Man, that dude he is out there just putting in work for this Clemson team and this 2025 class. And shout out to him for it, man. That's awesome. He doesn't have to do that, but it's really cool to see, how much he's bought in on Clemson and how much that he kind of nudges these guys and tries to get them to commit. So I think we laid some really promising groundwork this past weekend, heading into our May 31st big recruiting weekend that we will have this summer. And that tends to be where the momentum really gets to rolling on these Clemson classes, at least in the past few years since we started doing that big official visit in the summertime. This summer, it'll land on May 31st. Typically, it's been in June in the past, but looking forward to that weekend. I think we're really starting to gain some momentum that'll kind of carry us into that weekend, and hopefully after that weekend, maybe we can get some big time names to climb aboard officially onto the Clemson Tigers 2025 recruiting class. I think we've done a really good job so far. You mentioned Matt Luke and just the impact that he's had in his short time as a Clemson Tiger. The dude can just absolutely recruit. I mean, we are in it with guys right now that would have never been considering coming to Clemson as offensive linemen if we didn't hire Matt Luke. And I don't think that can be understated, or I don't think that can be overstated. It's just he's such an important piece, and I'm really excited about the trajectory of our offensive line right now, not just with the recruiting, but just with the people that are already on campus and already in the room that he's going to develop and really improve. And I really see our offensive line starting to take really big steps forward in the coming years, as long as we can keep them around. So we'll see how it goes. Tons to be excited about as far as recruiting. Still a lot of time. Lot of stuff can happen between now and signing day.
Yeah.
Obviously, none of this stuff is set in stone. Most of these guys haven't even committed yet. They're not even officially a part of the Clemson 2025 class. But I think we're doing pretty good, and that's all you can ask for at this point in time in the recruiting cycle.